music buffs.
Hey, turn the volume up, yeah? Make Me a Mixtape is here. I'm Jordan Stevens.
I'm Clara Anfo, and this is our brand new weekly music show.
You pick a theme.
We select the tunes.
And we battle it out to create the ultimate playlist just for you.
May the best music lover win.
Oh, it's about to go down. Let's go!
Make Me a Mixtape.
Listen only on BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Jane Lewis. It's Friday the 9th of August. This is a Scottish Football podcast, and what an evening of drama we witnessed last night.
Hoisted back in by Tanzer. Chance to the back post. Goal! Olisanya wheels away! And listen to the roar in Paisley!
It was the late show in Paisley as St Mirren kept their European dreams very much alive. And it was a similar story at Rugby Park.
Mackay Stephen in, left-footed, sends it in for the penalty area, swept towards goal. Not once but twice, it's in! There is the equaliser!
We'll discuss where those results leave Scotland's Conference League contenders. We'll also look ahead to what promises to be another exciting weekend in the Scottish Premiership. And, as if that's not enough,
Gallagher facing away from goal. She might still have the chance. Amy Gallagher! She's done it!
We'll also hear what to look out for as the SWPL season kicks off.
The Scottish Football Podcast.
Well, Gemma Fay, former Scotland goalkeeper, and Ewan Paton from the Killie Chronicle are with us. How are you both this morning? Okay?
Great.
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Ewan recovered from last night's drama, which we will talk about later.
Just about. It was a late one getting home, so feeling a little bit tired this morning, but more than happy to always discuss Kilmarnock.
Absolutely. Lots to discuss with Gemma and Ewan, but first of all, let's rattle through the latest Scottish football headlines, shall we? St Mirren and Kilmarnock both drew at home with Norwegian opposition thanks to late goals in the first legs of their Conference League qualifying ties. The Buddies game with Brann ended 1-1, while Killie tied 2 each with Tromsø. English Championship side Norwich have received a fresh bid from Celtic for striker Adam Ida. The Canaries have not accepted it yet, but talks between the two clubs are ongoing. Meanwhile, a couple of forwards could be on their way out of Scottish football. Aberdeen talisman Bojan Majowski is holding talks with Spanish club Girona, while Hearts have accepted an offer for their Japan striker Koyosuke Tagawa. And it's a big night in the Championship tonight, with Livingston travelling to Queen's Park and form teams Ayr United and Airdrie meeting at Somerset. That one is live on Sports Scene on BBC Scotland from 7:30. Well, let's start with Kilmarnock, shall we? Ewan, you were at the game last night. What did you make of it?
It's still a little bit raw, I suppose, but I think the kind of overriding feeling is a little bit of disappointment, Jane. It does feel like a missed opportunity to go out there and get the first European win on home soil since 2001, I believe. Obviously, Kyle Vassell scores after a little over 5 minutes, and you're thinking, right, come on, time to kind of ramp this up a notch, and we can go and score a few goals, hopefully. Tromsø looked woefully short of being at that sort of level, certainly within the first 20 minutes or so. They were really quite poor. But slowly but surely they kind of managed to work themselves into the game. They were quite happy to kind of kill things stone dead at points. The goalkeeper was, I'd never seen anything like it before. Their goalkeeper was out at basically the halfway line at points, and no Kilmarnock player was closing them down, and it was an obvious tactic from them, and it kind of seemed to really unsettle a lot of the home crowd. Managed to get it through to half time after they started to build themselves back into the game without overly troubling Robbie McCrory, maybe aside from one save down low to his right. Then they scored twice within about 14 minutes, and then it really kind of became quite apparent that this could turn into a bit of a disaster. But thankfully they showed a lot of character, and a dream come true for young Bobby Wales to score for his boyhood club, his first goal, especially in such a big game at Rugby Park. And he kind of spoke afterwards that he had a lot of friends there and a family and further afield watching. So yeah, a huge moment for him, and hopefully, having managed to score so late on in the game, we know the tie is still alive, but hopefully it's the kind of momentum change that's needed going into Norway in the second leg.
Yeah, a brilliant moment for Bobby Wales, as you say, that the 19-year-old getting his first ever senior goal for the club. Gemma, what will be the overriding feeling from a Kilmarnock point of view, and in terms of the mood and what they'll take over to Norway with them after that late equaliser?
The main thing about Europe is that you go into the second leg having a chance. That's what the route. Doesn't matter what tie it is, what competition is, you're still in the game. And I think that's the thing that Derek McInnes will take away, is that yes, there's sloppiness, and it's a small pattern that's slipped into Kilmarnock's play around about the kind of goals they're losing. When it's individual errors can be fixed. That's the really positive thing. When it's a system error, that's when you've got trouble. But I think we knew from the two Norwegian teams in action last night, Tromsø was the one which probably is not the strongest, not having the best season. And I guess that moving into the second leg, there's not a lot of changes they can make in terms of their team. They've got a pretty small squad, and the way in which they play is the way in which they play. So now that Kilmarnock have faced that already, the beautiful thing about Europe is you get a second chance when it's a two-legged tie. So I think not losing was huge. I think being able to come back and steal that at the end to get a draw puts momentum back in Kilmarnock's favour. They've had a tough run of it, so losing to Bruges, losing to Celtic, so actually not to lose is positive as well, gives momentum. And just once again realising where they are in the season. They're playing against a team that are not having a great season, but are 17, 18 games deep into a season. It's a different kind of feel. So look, they've got a game against St Johnstone this weekend. Hopefully that will allow them to build again before they go out for that return leg. So I think I can understand from Ewan's perspective, like from a fan's perspective, of wanting more and hoping for more and thinking we're better than this team. I get all that. But you put all those factors in the mix, and Kilmarnock are still in this. Kilmarnock can still progress deeper into Europe with this. So I think you don't have time to dwell. You can't be disappointed. You got to put that behind you. Try and fix the small things. Try and work this week on how do we press when that goalkeeper's so far up? Because that can be off-putting. That can be really off-putting because you're thinking, I should go here. Look where the goalkeeper is. But then there's a little bit of doubt in your mind. So performance-wise, there's absolutely more to come from Kilmarnock without a doubt. But they're not out of it, which is a huge positive. Those pesky goalkeepers, Gemma. There was a couple of penalty shouts. Ewan, what was your take on that? Finally, before we move on to St Mirren,
I didn't really think that there was much in the other ones, but the kind of foul from the goalkeeper on Joe Wright, the referee was pretty certain, very quickly pointed to the spot. So he must have really felt that he'd made an error of judgment. There was quite a lengthy delay at that point. Obviously, UEFA controlling VAR, and they had obviously advised him to go and check the pitch side monitor, which he, did. And it didn't really take him too long from then to kind of come to the conclusion. Speaking to the manager afterwards at the press conference, he, was obviously adamant that it was a penalty, which is understandable. From the stands, it did kind of look like, while the goalkeeper did get a full fist on the ball to punch it clear, he definitely got a lot of Joe Wright as well. So I think it's one of those ones where I don't really see it being a clear and obvious error. But yeah, I suppose it was just that little bit of luck that wasn't there for Kelly yesterday. But fingers crossed, next week if kind of something similar happens, then luck's on their side. And yeah, obviously we're all hoping that we can get through to the playoff round where it looks likely that it would be FC Copenhagen, which would be a massive reward for everyone at the club to play a team of that stature who were in the Champions League last year and beat Man United, got a draw against Bayern Munich, and kind of certainly didn't disgrace themselves against Manchester City. Yeah, that would be a brilliant glamour tie, as they say, wouldn't it? Let's move on to events in Paisley, Gemma, and a little bit like what you were saying with the Kilmarnock situation. St Mirren still very much in the tie, which is the most important thing. Absolutely, and let's not be about the bush. Brann are probably a different kettle of fish to Tromsø. They're a quality team. They're the second team in Norway. Once again, deep into their season, and I think that the word that I would use is survived. St Mirren survived that, and they were resilient. And you have to mention, I know I'm a goalkeeper, but Ellery Balcom
I think Stephen Robson's pulled off a masterstroke with that one. I find it strange that I don't find it strange. Obviously, he gets paid a lot at Brentford, but 8 loan spells he's been around the block. But as a shot stopper, if you look what he's done this season so far, if you think about the game away in Ballor or the game at home at Ballor, you think about the saves that he pulled off against Hibs. He just gives St Mirren a platform. If you can keep yourself in a game that long and you have confidence in what your goalkeeper can do, and he has a real presence in there, coming out, punching balls, commanding his area, that means that you're in with a chance. You're in with a real chance. And combine that with Asanya, and they have options at both ends there. So when you talk about how you build a team, you talk about the spine of the team being really strong, and you build around that. And it looks like Stephen Robson's managed to instill within his team, a young team at that, what it means to never give up. And to truly never give up is essentially, it's a skill that you have to learn and develop, and to do that at such a young age and get that whole team work into that mentality is really, really positive. And as you say, they're still in it. Look, they're going to a fully packed out stadium next week. It's going to be immensely hard. If they go there and they get through this tie, that is a result for the ages, because let's not beat about the bush. The resource difference between these two teams is huge. But once again, it's given that Paisley Massive some sort of an adventure, isn't it? You're doing the tour of the Nordic countries, and they're absolutely loving it. The Simsa was absolutely bouncing last night. I'm sure Paisley was bouncing last night, and rightly so, because they've waited 4 decades for this moment, and all they can ask for their team is to leave everything out in that pitch, and I think that's what they're getting at this moment in time.
Let's have a quick look at the weekend's Premiership fixtures. On Saturday, Dundee United travel to Dingwall to take on Ross County, while Rangers take on Motherwell at Hampden, and it's Dundee against Hearts. Let's talk about, first of all, Ewan, Rangers against Motherwell at the National Stadium, which could have its own pros or cons from a Rangers point of view. What are you thinking about that one? Rangers, of course, off the back of a decent European tie, but against Hearts on opening day of the season, some would say that they drop points.
Yeah, I'm thinking they need to win. Obviously anyone at Rangers would say the same and know the same, especially having dropped points at Tynecastle. Whether that's the right phrase or not, because obviously Hearts have improved during the summer. They're kind of one of few teams that looks as if they've really kind of managed to kick on in their recruitment, and going to Tynecastle at any point in the season is going to be a tough ask, no matter how many good players we've got. But obviously Rangers don't quite look at it at the moment. They do seem to have a couple of issues in terms of getting players fit, and also just sort of getting up and running, I suppose. Obviously Cyril Dessers scoring late against Dynamo Kiev the other night will have done the team no harm whatsoever, especially coming into this one. As far as I'm aware, I believe that Motherwell are kind of struggling with a few injuries, so I can't really see anything other than a Rangers win. But again, you never know. The fact that they're playing at a different stadium as well, and if Motherwell were to kind of frustrate them, and even if it's 0-0 going into around the 60th or 70th minute, like I can imagine the crowd getting a little bit restless, to say the least. So yeah, I'm expecting a Rangers win, but at the same time, there are factors at play which could mean that that's maybe not quite as straightforward as it might seem on paper. Yeah,
and of course Motherwell did beat them the last time they played, didn't they? Let's move on to Dundee against Hearts. Gemma, this one could be interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a whole pile of interesting fixtures this weekend based off that first weekend, and I don't mind a draw if it's entertaining. But Dundee versus Dundee United, it's hard for me to say this as a St Johnstone fan, but we welcome the Dundee derby back. I thought it was an excellent football match for the neutral, and Hearts versus Rangers as well. So you've got two, like Dundee didn't perform particularly well, but they got the result. They came into it a little bit later. It's going to be really good to see whether or not they can get their kind of team firing. Hearts, I thought, looked really, really good against Rangers. It's not an easy task to build on where you finished last season, to build and keep that momentum going into the new season. And I think Naismith's done that really well. So I'm excited to see that one. Dundee, as we know, last year, not an easy place to go. Hopefully the pitch is looking a little bit better than it was last year. But I think that's a really intriguing one. I think that this will be a measure to see. Derby matches are derby matches, and they're a bit false in terms of how a team are or have performed. But this, I think, is a test for Dundee to see where they really are at the beginning of this season.
On Sunday, let's move on. Hibs take on Celtic and Easter Road. Hibs have certainly been busy this week, haven't they? They've signed 4 attacking players, but Celtic, Ewan, certainly got off the mark last weekend in some style, didn't they?
They certainly did, much to Kilmarnock's detriment. But, being totally honest, from a personal and professional point of view, there was absolutely no stopping Brendan Rodgers and his team on Flag Day as well. Everything was stacked against Kelly, having obviously played away in Bruges, which obviously is not an excuse, as Derek McInnes has said time and time again. This is where they want to be, and it's just about kind of believing that this is where they should be and kind of getting that mentality. But Celtic were just so good. The midfield in particular totally destroyed Kelly, and unfortunately from a Kelly point of view, it really could have been a lot more than 4. But Celtic at this point, I know it's kind of been well documented, they've not got European qualifiers, so they're kind of able to go week to week. And Nicholas Cooden last week, who was very impressive, sort of said, he would maybe actually rather play, a couple of games a week as opposed to just Saturday to Saturday or and so on. But I would imagine, given that Hibs also haven't had the best of starts, that Celtic come through that one pretty comfortably.
Yeah, Gemma, it's tough times for Hibs already, which almost kind of sounds ridiculous to say because the season is just underway. They didn't have a great start to the season, and they're facing Celtic. They're facing Celtic again in the League Cup as well. These fixtures are not going to be easy for them.
No, and it's going to be a real test of Dave Gray's mettle. And I know they've brought in reinforcements this week up front, but defensively, and this is like been a common theme, like defensively has been an issue for a while for Hibs. And against St Mirren, I didn't really see that being resolved. I know it was debut, and sometimes you can have good debuts and sometimes you have bad debuts, but that I think is a real issue for Hibs. And this is not going to be easy the next couple of weeks. I don't expect them to win against Celtic, but I think what the Easter Road loyal will be looking for is a performance, signs and shoots of some sort of cohesion throughout the team, being able to work as a team, being able to do your basic tasks in defence well, and really showing a little bit of the I guess, St Mirren mentality in terms of that kind of never say die attitude, that determination, and really, really working to show that they deserve to be on that pitch and representing that badge, because they're a fierce bunch. Having played for Hibs, they're fierce, and if you don't put that out there and leave that out in the pitch, those fans will let you know. So it's a huge couple of weeks for Hibs in terms of the direction of their season.
Also on Sunday, fresh from their European exploits, St Mirren travel to Aberdeen. Kilmarnock are at home to St Johnstone. And I guess, Ewan, this is a real test of the squad, isn't it? And strength and that ability to juggle the demands of European football and domestic football as well, with the games coming, so thick and fast.
Absolutely, Jane. Reporting on the game last night for the Herald as part of our new Kelly Chronicle Substack. You get the opportunity to then obviously speak to the manager after, and to quote him, he was saying that Big Levine will be rubbing his horns at the prospect of playing Kilmarnock at the minute, which I don't think anyone could argue with. He obviously kind of made the point himself that he's been there as a manager where you look at the fixtures ahead and you're playing a team that's got a European tie during the midweek, and it suddenly becomes a little bit more upbeat, and you feel a little bit more ready for the prospect of it. But you're right, for both St Mirren and Kelly, this weekend is going to be a sort of real test of, again, that balancing act between these qualifiers and the domestic fixtures. Obviously this week it is a home game for Kelly as opposed to the toughest away fixture that Scotland's got to offer. But St Johnstone will definitely be a tough test. The games between Kelly and St Johnstone are kind of notoriously stuffy and doesn't really tend to be too much in it at the best of times, so I can imagine we're kind of in for something similar. And obviously St Mirren got off to a fantastic start last week against Hibs, so they didn't really quite have the same issues as Kelly, albeit they were at home. But absolutely no doubts that Stephen Robinson will have his team up for this one, and they'll look to kind of continue their strong form heading over to Norway next week.
It does look like Aberdeen look to be losing striker Bojan Majowski. No big surprise. He's in talks with Girona over a possible move over there. How big a loss will that be for Aberdeen, Gemma, if that move goes through?
That'll be a big loss, but what I would say is I don't think Aberdeen are naive. They should have, and they would have planned for that being the case. And look, I think Jimmy Thieling's got them looking really good. They played particularly well in the first half against St Johnstone last week. St Johnstone changed up a little bit. I do hear that Craig Levine's thinking about playing the goalkeeper in the halfway line on Sunday. So, no, but in all honesty, the travelling support down to McDermott Park was huge. There's a real buzz around about Aberdeen at this moment in time. And that's not an easy tie at all. It's not helping St Mirren one little bit, having to go all the way up to Aberdeen. I'm sure they'll probably just stay up there, then fly over. But a great opportunity, I would say, for Aberdeen in terms of cementing, a winning start to the season. Because if I'm St Mirren, if I'm Steven, I'm resting a couple of players as well. That's what I'm doing. So yeah, interesting times, but it's a good fixture card. I think it's a really interesting fixture card with lots of sub stories all over the place. And I think it's really cool that you've got like Kilmarnock and St Mirren who are trying to figure out, how do I juggle this European thing? It's not something that happens a lot. It's not something that clubs and managers and players experience. And you can only ever get that by playing in European ties. So I think there's so many interesting subplots already, and we're only in week 2 or round 2 of the season.
Also this weekend, the SWPL kicks off on Saturday with champions Celtic unfurling the flag as they take on Dundee United at Parkhead. We're both going to be at that one. Gemma, how much are you looking forward to the new campaign kicking off?
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. There's a lot at stake this year. There's a restructure to the league at the end of the year, which is, makes relegation a huge point. There's been a lot of movement in the transfer market. Some more than others. You're looking at a somewhat complete rebuild at Glasgow City. I think one of the biggest signings coming in there is Lisa Evans returning to the club from Bristol. Rangers have been notoriously quiet in the transfer market. I'm intrigued to see what they pull out in the last couple of weeks. And Celtic have done a huge clear out in terms of players out and players in. And the Hearts and Hibs post-season swap has continued with a couple of players going in both directions. So, look, I think there's going to be a really exciting mix in there. You would suggest that Celtic are in a position where they have to defend a title in the women's game. They've never had to do that before. That comes with its own pressures. Everybody always discounts Glasgow City and says this is the year that they'll not keep in touch with Rangers and Celtics. What we know is it's always stupid to discount them, and they've certainly gone out and recruited to. Let's see what they can bring in. Rangers will be hurting, and we've already heard Jane Ross say this week that they have refocused and we know what they want. They've also got a big European tie coming up, Arsenal, so that'll be really interesting. Yeah. And then at the other end of the league, you're going to have a real scrap in terms of ensuring that you're not in that bottom 3. So it's exciting times. I'm looking forward to the first flag day for Celtic in the women's game.
Yeah, it is exciting times. The highlights programme, of course, will return on Monday evening with all the action for you, 7 o'clock on BBC Scotland. That's all we've got time for. My thanks to Gemma and Ewan for their insights on this podcast, and thank you very much for listening. You can, of course, watch Ayr United against Airdrie in the Championship on BBC Scotland from 7:30 tonight. Sports Sound will bring you all the live action on BBC Radio Scotland across the whole weekend, while Sports Scene will have all the highlights on Saturday, Sunday and, of course, Monday too. We'll be here with the Scottish Football Podcast every day, so make sure you follow or subscribe whenever you listen so that you don't miss out. From us all, enjoy your football this weekend. Bye-bye.
Just a quick reminder, the Behind the Goals podcast is available every Tuesday with me, Rachel Corsey, and me, Leanne Crichton. It's your one-stop shop for our take on everything that's happening in the world of football. Just head to BBC Sounds or wherever you get your podcasts and search for Behind the Goals.